Gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Kid, you're irritating me. Go.
Hello. Stop the banner, man.
Stop the banner. You know we're live, right? I mean, what kind of professional deal is this bullshit?
At night.
On the only.
A-Train Arlington Lane. But hey, folks, thank you for tuning in this evening. I'm getting I give me some water, man, because sometimes I get parched.
Parched? You look parched. Look at you.
Anyway, well,
we got a special guest tonight.
We do, and I'm not going to waste any time. From Pro Football Newsroom, James.
Wait,
Larson.
You're not going to waste any time? You're actually going to bring our special guest on early?
Yeah, I told him 7 o'clock.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah, it is 7:01. We broadcast out of the Wilds. We are sponsored by Wild Sun Brewing and Wine Company. This the 29th of July, Wild Sun is doing their Customer Appreciation Day. And on September 9th, we do the big X-Fan, Legion, and B-Hawk Live Fan Appreciation Wild Sun. It's a $10 ticket that gets you a commemorative glass, plus a chance.
A what?
Commemorative.
Commemorative
glass.
That don't even sound right, dude. That came out of your mouth.
A commemorative glass.
Hey, shut up. Stop saying it. Stop saying the word.
And you get a chance to enter a pair of Battlehawk season opening tickets. Big Papa G is spinning records that night. So come on down and join us on those nights. All right, bring our guest in, Arlington.
Ladies and gentlemen, from Pro Football Newsroom, USFL Newsroom, and XFL Newsroom, the one and only Mr. James Larson. James.
Is this the group I like, Arlington, or the group I don't like?
None of your business. I'm gonna make you figure it out on your own.
Oh, okay.
What's up, James? How you doing, man?
Good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
No problem, sir. Hey, man, glad we've been trying to get you on for a little bit, but here we are. We're doing it today, and there are some things that we need to discuss, man. And you know what, Dirty? I'm gonna go ahead and pull it up myself. I want you to take a look at this recent clip. It's gonna show up right about now.
When I was there with the XFL, they are kind of, in a sense, trying to hit a home run. They're trying to put a ton of money into a product to, make a big splash, get some big name players. And, they were giving out tickets to fill the stands and all that kind of stuff. They wanted to give the feel that it was, just a step under the NFL. With the USFL is kind of doing what I like to say is taking a more financially smart and sustainable approach. They're trying to make sure that they can last the test of time. So they're actually making money, whereas the XFL is losing money. Now, I don't know what the viewership looks like. I don't know, if you ask people which one that they preferred. I will say this. I think the top end players in the XFL were probably slightly better, but I think the overall talent in the USFL was better. So I felt like once I went from, in just a matter of 2 weeks, I was able to see it on the field. I felt like the pace of play was a little bit faster in the USFL in terms of guys flying around, making plays, all that kind of when I was there with the XFL, they are kind of in a
So that was Jake. That's courtesy of Jake Ellenbogen live, and that was recent Arlington Renegades quarterback Kyle Sloter. He had some comments about the disparities between the XFL and the USFL. James, what are your thoughts on that? I got mine, but I want to save. That's why I brought you on, sir. What do you think about that when you saw that clip?
Well, I thought it was fascinating how we saw quite a bit of controversy coming from that clip, right? You have two sides. You have the USFL fans, you have the XFL fans, and everybody was clashing over what he said. I thought a lot of people took what he said out of context. To be quite frank, I thought that his assessment was relatively fair. Players are always going to have their biases, right? So Kyle Sloter, he had probably an overall better experience in the USFL. I mean, he was all USFL in 2022. He goes to the Arlington Renegades. It's just really just a mess all around between him, Bob Stoops, the rest of the organization. And then he eventually, he leaves, he gets cut, he goes back to the USFL. He's not playing, but he did win a championship with the Stallions. So, I mean, overall, I feel like his statements were relatively on point when you look at the talent across the board. I feel like what he said about the XFL was accurate. The top end talent, guys like AJ McCarron, Josh Gordon, for example, I thought were probably some of the top tier players we've seen in spring football really ever. So I think that's a fair analysis to make. At the same time, the USFL, they were in their second season. So I do feel like the quality of play was maybe slightly better across the board from just some of these teams that have had 2 seasons to work with each other as opposed to 1.
Interesting, because I guess I was trying to look at it with, not trying to take it as a bias or anything like that. And I know there are people that do not like the XFL, and there are those that do not like the USFL. And the way that I was looking at it as, look, I see that Kyle Sloter was really trying to make something, of his experience in the XFL, and it didn't quite work out. And I understood that the USFL did have an extra season, just like you said. But my thing is the parity of play looked a little bit different and a bit better on the XFL side than it did on the USFL side. Granted, they still had a successful season. And then the other thing was you're a backup now with the Birmingham Stallions. You're not a starter because you were behind the USFL MVP. You were backing up. And that means you didn't get to see a lot of playing time. Granted, like you said, again, back to the 2022 season where he was all USFL, you're not doing that this season. And so to say that was just kind of like you really trying to throw stones at the XFL when actually what they were doing was spending money instead of losing money. You got to spend money to make money. And so it was like, I understand the context that was thrown out, but at the same time, you're going to lose money if you have to spend it because you have to make things work, make it better. And granted, he was talking about the tickets being sold or given to fans. Fine. What was the USFL doing with that? They had that stuff blocked off because they weren't worried about the fans. And so a lot of times when you look at stuff like that, you're going to lose money from that too. Because if you got a good product, you're going to want fans to come and see your product. And you want to base everything just off of television. You can't. It takes that plus the audience. It's like, I love my man David Burnett. He uses the game show example. And the game show audience. You got to make sure you have a viable product where everybody can see it. It has glitz and glamour and everything. If you see that, hey, you focused in on it and you want to be a part of that. You may want to be a part of that audience where you get to be there in front of a studio and whatnot. And that's how the USFL took that approach. And the XFL said, we want to make sure all the fans get in to see it. And so get in as many as we can. Granted, there were a lot of areas that were blocked off. I ain't got nothing wrong with that. But they were allowing fans to go out and see the games. That's just how I took stuff. But I don't disagree with what you were saying at all. It's just my aspect was you being a little bit harsh on it, and that you didn't get the opportunities that you got in the USFL with the XFL because, like you were saying, as he was saying, he was trying to make it seem like it was a coach's problem. Everybody looked at it, he was the problem. So that's how I looked at that. And so Dirty, you got anything to add to that, man? Because I just think
Well,
Slaughter was
I'll
wrong.
let James go. I'll let James go because I have a completely different take on the
Yeah,
whole thing.
I'd like to respond to that really quick. I think that there's a few points that we could go over here. First, with Slaughter and Arlington, I do think it's a fair point that he made about the offense and the struggles that they had. Because if you go back, you watch the film. I mean, I watched every single Renegades game this season, and those first several weeks, I mean, it was just disastrous. Like anyone watching at home could tell that whether it was Slaughter, Plitt, whoever was in there, nothing was going to happen because they were running the ball a lot, not efficiently, not effectively. And I think he does make a fair point that, things just weren't going well and he just didn't fit into the offense. I mean, Luis Perez comes in and all of a sudden they actually start throwing the ball down the field. And that's partially because Perez is an excellent quarterback. But at the same time, I do think that Slaughter was somewhat justified in his statements on that end, just because, like, I don't feel like he was given a fair shot as a quarterback. We look at some of these games, he's splitting time with Drew Plitt. He's getting 2 drives and then Plitt's getting 2 drives. They're running the same plays over and over and over again. The offense was just mediocre across the board. But to circle back to your point about, the XFL itself and spending money, I think what's fascinating to me is seeing, Slaughter make those comments. And then you see some XFL players, respectfully disagreeing with him, like Jeff Badet, for example. He has a completely different experience. And I think it goes to show that in these leagues, every player is going to have a little bit of a bias just based on how their experience went. For Slaughter, he's always had a better experience in the USFL. So obviously he's going to lean that direction. You look at a guy like Jeff Badet, who was with the Michigan Panthers last year, but only for a couple of weeks before he got injured. Things didn't pan out for him in the USFL. Meanwhile, they've been great for him in 2020 and then this past 2023 season in the XFL. So it makes sense to see these guys kind of having differing opinions just based on what happened in their individual stories.
No, you're muted. You're muted. Unmute. There you go.
Thought you were talking to me. I was like, oh no. I got to repeat myself now. Well, dang.
No, I'm talking to my esteemed co-host there, James. I'm sorry.
All right.
You've watched this show. You've watched this show enough. You usually know that I'm the unprofessional one, but my sidekick here, Arlington.
Hey, he's catching me off guard today, and I'm really slipping, and I got to change that. I'm talking with James Larson, the Pro Football Newsroom, right here on the X-Fan Show Thursday, man. We're just talking a bit about, comments from Kyle Slaughter, disparity between the XFL and USFL, and yes, I think like really it's when you saw Jeff Badet, he came on there, and then Trey Watson also from the St. Louis Battlehawks chimed in a bit too. They were letting it know, it's like, wait a minute, man. Hey, if you really watch the games and stuff, there was a lot of granted, there was a lot of error, especially in the first 5 weeks, in my opinion. And then the last 5 weeks, it got a lot better. And granted, there were a lot of games. I think over 80% of the games, they were by at least one score. So that means 9 or less. So, I mean, that's a pretty good look for your league when you have a competitive nature of everybody just starting on one accord at the same time. With Slaughter's situation, that was, I'm looking at it as from Stoops' standpoint, he didn't see him as the starter. I know he looked at it, meaning Slaughter looked like he was going to be pinned as the guy because of where he came from and that he just had recently had a stint with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So it just looks like everything was looking good for him to be the guy in Arlington. But Bob Stoops didn't see it that way. And it's like you said, when they brought in Luis Perez, the whole landscape changed and they wind up winning a title off of that. That's what's even more crazier to me, is that the team that he left was a champion. And then the team he goes to as a backup this time, he's a champion. So it's just really interesting to me. We got a comment here. Says Kyle Slaughter was hogging the snaps in the USFL. He's playing injured in the USFL and didn't let the other quarterback have his shot. I remember he wasn't good with all the injuries during his USFL season. I mean, he was decent enough. I can't say he was bad, but he was, he got all USFL honors. So I can't sit there and say he was just completely bad with that.
I think this is the longest I've been silent on this show since the creation of this show. At 14 minutes and 30 seconds, Dirty hasn't opened his mouth. And now the truth comes out. I will speak the truth. Here's what it is. We have two leagues that have very, very passionate fan bases. We have the USFL side that has their passionate fan base that says the USFL is far more superior than the XFL. We saw that all in 2022. The games in 2022, I watched every XFL game in 2022 or USFL game in 2022. The one thing I didn't like about the USFL is there wasn't the crowds, unless you were watching the Birmingham games. The Birmingham games were the most exciting games because of the crowd. Fast forward to 2023, after the NFL draft, after the football season, who got the more cream of the crops? The XFL did for the 2023 season. Arlington, as you know, we've had guys as Jordan Ta'amu on this show, Taylor Russolino, guys that have played in both leagues. And again, it is this. Which way did they prefer? Which system worked better for those players? We say it all the time. A player fits the system of their team. I mean, look, Arlington, we've said it. James had said it about Luis Perez. Luis Perez might be the smartest spring football quarterback that there has ever been since these creations of these two leagues. I'm going back from 2020 all the way to now. Luis Perez knows how to fit into a system. Maybe it was Kyle Slaughter couldn't fit into the Arlington Renegades system. I mean, Arlington, we've seen it in 2020, what Jonathan Hayes' system was. It was that run-heavy type of system, and it didn't work. Didn't work for him. We saw how he did when he was Kyle Slaughter was in the USFL. He played great then. This is about what works best for that player and what is their opinion. Regardless of what you say, which league is the best. In this season for the USFL, I'm going to admit, I didn't watch as many games because I'd watched the XFL, had the fans. It was exciting, but I still paid attention. I still watched all the highlights. Was it at this time that we were just, by the time that the USFL started, we were already just burnt out from football? Because as we saw in the beginning of the year, the USFL's ratings were up. As the XFL's ratings started to dip, and then as the season progressed, the ratings for USFL dipped and then went back up for the championship, just like with the XFL. Is this getting to be a point to where we are having too much football and we are starting to get burnt out on these football leagues? I think that's what it is. And I think the players are starting to get burnt out on it also.
I think that's a fair point to make. And I think you can look at this, in multiple ways, right? Because you've got the XFL timeline, which kind of catches right after the Super Bowl. And then, it runs to the beginning-ish of May, give or take. Mm-hmm. I mean, the interesting thing with the XFL is they had a bye week before the championship, which I thought, we haven't really ever seen that in spring football before. So we had a week off, basically. I don't know if they'll do that again next year or not. But either way, they'll be wrapping up really in the beginning of May. So, from a ratings perspective, beginning of May typically is when it's starting to get warmer outside. People want to start going out to events. So to me, it made sense to see some of those USFL games down in numbers a little bit, simply because, for one, as you mentioned, we had the XFL, a lot of spring football fans. Spring football, sure, it is technically split between XFL and USFL, but the majority of us are watching both. So a lot of XFL fans, they might have been burnt out. The weather's warm outside. It's June, it's July. It's time for me to go out on the lake with my family. So I think that definitely could have played a factor. Although, on the other side, last year there was no XFL. So I almost felt like it was a nice break to have 2 months off from football. It was kind of nice. So I think you could kind of look at it from either perspective. Really, it's subjective. It really depends on the person's opinions and what they want.
Yeah, I agree. It's really which league do you find the more entertaining? Unless you're in one of the cities of the USFL, you're going to find the USFL more entertaining and more pleasurable to watch. If you're in a city where the XFL is, you're going to lean more towards the XFL. Let's not forget, there is no USFL team west of the Mississippi. They're all East Coast teams. Where the XFL has they have Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Vegas, and Seattle, all west of the Mississippi, really. So, so the thing is what demographic are you going for? The XFL has the bigger geographical area because it's across the United States, where the USFL is more East Coast. And I mean, look, who was the biggest spokesperson for the USFL besides Daryl Johnson? XFL had The Rock. So everybody's wanting to see what's really going to make the make or break point for the XFL is this upcoming season. We all wanted to see the season finish. We were all excited that the USFL finished its first season. Hell, I was excited that the USFL finished their second season. Now it's the XFL. Will the XFL be able to finish season 2? That's going to be the biggest thing. And if it doesn't, then all of this fighting is going to go down to the wayside, and everybody's going to say, oh, USFL won. So plain and simple, like here, look, somebody just asked this question, exactly why the XFL should try to get a team in New York at Red Bull Arena. Red Bull Arena doesn't want it. They don't want an XFL team in the soccer stadium.
I think the main reason why we're seeing these spring leagues stay away from New York right now is obviously it's the most expensive market, right? You've got to be fiscally responsible if you want to survive. That's why we see the way the USFL does things with their hubs, and I totally understand why that turns off people, right? I mean, I completely understand why some people are like, people aren't in the crowd, or there's only 1,000 people in the stands. I'm not going to watch this. I get it. But for spring football to survive, you have to be fiscally smart. So that's just the avenue that the USFL sees. And then on the other hand, the XFL, I mean, obviously New York Guardians in 2020, that was when you had the powerhouse of Vince McMahon behind the league, all of his financing and everything else that went into that. You had the New York Guardians who did pretty well. I mean, MetLife probably wasn't the best choice stadium-wise, but those fans, they did show up. It's just MetLife is fits like 80,000 people or something like that. Yeah. So, but I think it'll be interesting to watch if one of these leagues decides to try to go back into New York. Like it just can't be in the first couple of seasons because it's so expensive.
Right. And the hardest thing would have been for them, for a New York team, would have been playing either in Citi Field or Yankee Stadium. And they weren't going to let that happen, especially with the way that they treat those ballparks. That is their field. That's for the Mets and that's for the Yankees. Nobody else. And granted, I think Yankee Stadium had the bowl, the Yankee Pinstripe Bowl and stuff, but that was for that reason only. And so New York was it sounded really good. Same with Los Angeles. And they played in a soccer stadium, and they couldn't draw. But you got to remember what's all in Los Angeles. You got the Dodgers, you had the Lakers, you had the Clippers, you had the Angels, you also had the Kings, all going at the same time. So that was the big ploy why it did not really work out so well in LA, and they taken a step back. Now you said, well, what happened with Tampa? Well, Tampa it's hot there. The case in point, and I shout out to Corey Helton, because I'm giving him mad credit for what he's trying to do in Orlando, because Orlando does need professional football. And during those 3 months, it's actually the best time when you can go and watch a game for the most part, because it's not as hot as other, during the spring and summer months. It's the wintertime, February to April. It's not as hot, but, he tried to make it work as best as possible. And you got to applaud him for, trying to make Camping World Stadium a place to watch professional football when a lot of people aren't feeling it because of its facilities itself. Because you've been there yourself.
James, I want to ask you this question because I've been to Vegas, okay? And this right here comment to me is literally the dumbest comment that I've had on this show in a very long time. It says, I agree. I think that the XFL went for the 3 Texas teams to start. I agree. They should have stayed in Texas. Travel cost, right? And then Vegas was still a stupid idea, even in hindsight. Well, let me explain something to you about Vegas. And James, and you tell me if I'm wrong. With Vegas, they signed a deal with Cashman Field for $50,000 for 5 years. How stupid is that? Is that a dumb deal? I mean, yeah, did it look cosmetically well? But they only had 6 weeks. They only had one guy there 6 weeks leading up to the season to get everything done in Vegas. So was Vegas really a bad idea with only spending $50,000? Because guess what? They didn't lose any money on Vegas. None. Because of that reason right there.
Here's my issue with Vegas. for me, it's less about Cashman. It's less about that.
Mhm.
For me, it's the fact that we waited 3 years for the
Mhm.
XFL to return. Danny Garcia, Dwayne Johnson, just constantly preaching that it's going to be worth the wait. It's going to be worth the wait. You know, patience, patience. We're taking our time because we're going to get everything right. They did not get everything right. For me, I understand Vegas was financially sure. That's not terrible. It looked awful on TV. There's
It
no
did.
way around it. It was terrible. Players were getting injured on the field because of how poorly conditioned it was. In no circumstance should that have ever happened. Personally, if you're calling yourself a professional stand-up league like the XFL, it's just that can't happen. So my bigger issue with Vegas was simply the fact that we waited so long for this to happen. Like, why did it take so long for them to get this in order to where they had to settle last second for Cashman, and then it was just the disaster that we saw. So again, like as you said, financially, sure, it worked out. I mean, that's really, really cheap for a football stadium, but well, actually, a baseball turned football stadium. But you know
Right,
what I
yeah.
mean. But my bigger issue with it is like, man, this isn't like 2021 where they were, from 1 year to the next. This was a
Right.
3-year wait where we were delayed and delayed and delayed. And then that's the best that they could have come up with. That to me was their biggest blunder.
Well, again, that's the reason why. I mean, listen, they had a lot of places in Vegas in play. But you had the mayor in Vegas that was in play because she didn't want it at certain areas. You had Al Davis in Vegas because Mark Davis and they reached out to the Raiders. Doug Whaley and Russ Brandon reached out to the Raiders to say, hey, oh, there went my damn camera, saying, hey, let us play in your stadium. Let us play in your stadium. And they said no because they wanted 100 or they wanted, what was it, 500,000 just to open up the stadium. It made no sense. So Cashman Field, they were going to play in a high school stadium, which was almost a done deal. But you got to what people got to realize is there was one dude in Vegas that spent 6 weeks getting all that together with no help from the league, no help from marketing, no help from the higher ups in the league. It was just one dude who got it all done. And that's it. And plus, I had a great time in Vegas. A great time in Vegas. Had a great fan experience in Vegas.
Hey, I appreciate my picture being up on yours.
Shut
I
up.
know you love me,
There
man.
you go, James.
Yeah, I
I'm
was looking
sorry,
at. I got
apologize.
confused there for a second. I didn't know who was who.
So listen, look, Vegas is going to get better. And let's talk about the coach that they have in Vegas, because I know me and Arlington talk about it with Dr. Anthony Bevan. Which me and Arlington didn't realize this until today when we were talking. Arlington finally got his wish, James. Arlington's been crying and playing the rusty trombone on Vince McMahon in the XFL of 01 about he finally wanted somebody from the original XFL to be in the XFL. Well, now we have it. Dr. Anthony Bevan played for the Birmingham Thunderbolts. He is now a head coach for the Vegas Vipers. Now, is that significant that we have an original player coming full circle to be coaching in this version of the XFL?
Absolutely. I do want to point out that Jonathan Heimbach, who is the offensive line coach for the Argentine Renegades, was also a player in the original XFL. So, in case you weren't aware, now you are. So that's a
We're
cool.
talking head coach. Head coach.
I get it. I know, but I gotta give my
man.
guy a shout out because that guy Heimbach is incredible, man. Back-to-back
Right.
rings. Congrats to him. Anyways, no, I think it's an interesting move from the league. Personally, I wish they would have gone with someone maybe that has a tad bit more experience, at least in the world of spring football. But Anthony Blevins, I mean, he's an excellent prospect. He's a guy that NFL people have talked about very highly of. So I like the move, and I think that getting Rod Woodson out of there was probably a good thing.
I mean, okay, what was that? When we were in Vegas, Dirty, did we not say that look that Woodson had, it seemed like he just did not want to be there?
No, well, I mean, if you really look at it, like like I said, I watched all 40 games. I watched all 45 games of the XFL, right? Watched all of them. Rod Woodson never looked like he wanted to be there. The one time that I met Rod Woodson, the second time I met Rod Woodson at the stadium, after he just didn't want to be there. And I think his players felt it. And I think that's why we got the way that the Vegas Vipers played. I think, in my opinion, it's just, I don't know. I mean, Vegas, it just, we talk about the XFL and everything that they did right. Vegas is that one thing that they did not do right, really. There's a little bright side of Vegas. I mean, like I said, watching the game at Cashman, you were literally 2 feet from the field. So a player came up, boom, you could high five them like it was nothing. Anywhere you sat in the stadium, you could watch the game. It was just, I think it was the whole coaching staff and the way it was done. And like you said, James, the way that the fans took to Vegas of waiting so long, that's what made Vegas the shit show that it really was.
I only got a little bit of time. I forgot. I'm just looking at the time now. I'm like, I got to get James off, but I got to talk about this really quick before I get him out. Of course, it's because we're gonna move forward. The XFL Combine that's dropping up the 26th and 27th, being live streamed on Facebook and YouTube on with the XFL. And have you seen any notable names that we should look out for when we get to the Combine come next week?
Yeah, so there's definitely going to be some exciting names. Let me pull up. I had a little list that I can pull up really quick. XFL analysts had put together some guys that were going to be there.
My favorite, Lacoby Tucker, will be there, who was on this show. So yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah,
to see
so one guy that I think could really be a standout is quarterback Sam Castronova. He's a guy who's a little bit lesser known. You know, he's been in like those arena leagues and whatnot, but he's a very, very talented arm. So I think him being in the XFL Combine, he'll be fun to watch. And he's one of those sleeper agents that I think could be quite good in the league. Also, wide receiver James Harden, not to be confused with the NBA star. This is a guy that's just been pushing and pushing and grinding and grinding. I've been following his story since, man, it's been quite a long time. So he's been in the fan control football league the last couple of years, and he's a guy that could definitely shine across the board. I mean, I'm excited to see some of these names. Another guy, Anthony Ciofi, he's a safety. He played for the Tampa Bay Bandits in the USFL last year. He led the team, he was very, very close to being the leader in tackles for the team. He's an explosive safety, very smart football player. So definitely several guys to look at in this upcoming combine.
Excellent stuff, man. Hey,
real quick, I just think it's awesome that they're going to stream it. I mean, this is what we've been waiting for so long from some spring football league. Like, just please give us more off-season content. So I think this is a great move, and you know, it's simple, it's accessible, it's going to be on YouTube. You know, something you can just turn on and off whenever you want. You're not like trying to catch it on a TV show or something. So I think it's a great move.
I agree.
One last thing before you go. Darren Evans from the Arlington Renegades, he signs with the New York Giants. What does that mean for the New York Giants, and what type of player will they be getting?
Yeah, I mean, Darren Evans was really a solid cornerback this year. A guy who didn't get a lot of attention simply because he wasn't targeted much. I mean, he was a lockdown corner. He played really good football. Emery Hunt is a guy who covers a lot of these spring football leagues. I want to give him a shout out because he's done some excellent coverage. And he had talked to one of the New York Giants assistant managers. I want to say it was about a month ago, and just asked him about, you know, the importance of these spring football leagues, and his response, you know, how often they look to these leagues for guys. And since then, the Giants have given multiple XFL and USFL guys a look. And now, of course, they just signed Darren Evans. So I think it's a great move. Evans is a guy that's proven himself before on the spring football level, and I think it's time that he gets his NFL shot.
All right, James, one last question, then we promise we will let you go.
Hey, I got time. It's all good, guys.
Because we were talking about this. Of all of the XFL players let's not even include the USFL players, right? Let's include the XFL players that have been signed to this point. I really only say there's going to be one player that will stick, and that's going to be Demarius Shepard with was it the Chargers?
Yeah,
is that right? As the kick returner. I think the other ones are either going to get practice squad spots or they're going to get cut and move back down to the XFL. That's just my opinion. In your opinion, of all these players that have been signed, it's been 30 players, so that's 8% of the league. Which ones do you think of the XFL players will be the ones that will actually make their squads?
You know, it's tough to say because I personally am not a general manager. But A guy that I really want to see do well is Hakeem Butler with Pittsburgh. I think, he's a guy that you look at his story and just how remarkable it was. He just DM'd Coach Betch, I think, and DM'd a couple of the coaches and was like, hey, check my film. I'd love to come play for you. Next thing you know, I mean, he just tears up the XFL. I mean, this guy is just a physical specimen. Like, I would compare him somewhat. He reminded me of what DK Metcalf would do in the XFL. If that think that's a fair comparison. I mean, this guy is just a beast across the board. He's ripping balls out of the air. He was just dominating across the board. So I think he's the type of guy that after this season, man, I would not want to face him in the NFL. I really think that he could do well there, especially if they get a little bit more consistent quarterback play in Pittsburgh. He could be a real threat.
Sir,
you do realize
that this individual had so much hate. This dude that's sitting above you, so much hate towards that guy, towards Hakeem Butler. I never understood it. Like, he would just dog Hakeem Butler out each week. Anytime I'm like, what are you expecting him to catch everything? And he was like, yes. I'm like, come on, man. It's about getting into the fold. And he was one of the best receivers. Look, stop it. See, that's what I'm talking about. Y'all are something else when y'all come so hard for Hakeem Butler. I wish him all the best. All the best. Right. Even Dan Whelan. I see he's going to make the squad too. John Parker Romo making the Lions. I see that.
That's a really interesting one. Parker Romo, just because the Lions just released that other kicker that was, I think, their starter a season ago. So now they've got two guys on the roster. They do have that guy Robinson on the team who they traded for from Jacksonville. So is he the favorite right now? Yes. But we saw what Parker Romo did. I mean, that guy was lights out all year long. So I think.
Well, hold on now, James. Listen, hey, you got to be money. Listen, don't.
And just like that, we're gonna end that particular conversation. But no, Parker Romo was fantastic. I get what he did during the season, and for the majority of the season, with what they had, he was money. You can't deny that. You can't deny
really?
that.
He could have taken them to the championship game, and he purposely missed that kick to not take it to the championship game. That's my conspiracy, and I'm sticking.
Man, thank you. Anyway, as we continue on with James Larson of XFL Newsroom and Pro Football Newsroom here on the X-Fan Show. Another name was shocking to me, though, James. We mentioned about some of the names. It's like 31 players that have signed NFL contracts. Some have been released already. But the surprising things to me is that there are some members of the All XFL team that have not even received looks, such as Jordan Teamu, Offensive Player of the Year, who was All XFL, and then not to mention Abram Smith from the DC Defenders hadn't even received a single look. Do you think that at any point that he will receive something, or is like you just got to get another year and see if you can do the same thing that you did this past year, and maybe we'll give you another chance?
Yeah, no, I think you make a great point. I am a little bit confused by some of these DC Defenders players getting overlooked. I mean, the good news is we did see some guys go, like Chris Blair, or Lucky Jackson, who went to my Minnesota Vikings. So I'm hoping he sticks there.
Oh, but God. Hold on. Darlington, pull this up. Is he really a Minnesota Viking fan?
Listen, I'm sorry. I got to stand by my guy. I am a Vikings fan, true and true. Kirk Cousins supremacy, Super Bowl 2024.
Oh, God. Here are you, like James, you just made the Queen so happy. The Queen Hyena from our Wednesday B-Hawk Live. Her and Daddy Ed are Minnesota Viking fans. You just literally made them
friends. Now they're gonna follow you now.
Look what the idiot said. She goes, I am out running and you stopped me in my tracks. Well, hopefully she runs into oncoming traffic then.
Hey,
I hope that gets me a follow, if anything.
But here's my thing, though. It's like,
let him finish his point before I rudely interrupted him, Arlington.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So, anyways, I really am surprised that Tamu and Smith didn't go. I'm especially surprised by Smith because Tamu has been in and out of NFL camps. So, and that's not to say he's not talented. I think he deserves a shot, no doubt. But Abram Smith is a guy, he's coming out. He was the first pick in the XFL draft, and he proved exactly why he was the number one pick. And a couple of those games, especially week 5 against St. Louis, I mean, that was just a ridiculous performance. I don't know how you see that and then don't even like you don't have to you don't have to sign him. You don't have to sign him right away. Just give him a look, give him a workout, like just give him a shot. I mean, I just don't see why. That to me is quite odd, but again, I'm not a general manager in the NFL, so unfortunately,
Well,
I don't have a
James,
say.
it's funny. It's funny that you say that because me and Arlington were talking about Abram Smith, and is it because this was Abram Smith's really first year as a running back, professional running back, where he's been a linebacker at most of the time, and now he transitioned to running back? Could that be why he didn't get a look? And like Arlington said, is maybe get another year underneath him. And I mean, as we've seen in the NFL, that the average lifespan for a running back in the NFL is 4 years, 4 to 5 years. So, I mean, could that be a reason? I mean, I think that might be a reason why Abram Smith didn't get looked at, is that he was a linebacker, then transitioned to running back his first year and did really, really well. I mean, what's your take on that one?
That's a good point. I think that, I mean, obviously you need film. You need film, you need reps, you need game reps, and that's exactly why I'm going to preach spring football until I die, because it gives these guys a chance to get reps, the XFL providing these guys with opportunities. I still feel like there's no way around it. He deserves a shot. I don't see why he hasn't gotten one yet, just based on what we saw this year, but you could be right. I mean, there's definitely a chance that he sees one next year. An example would be Mark Thompson from the USFL. He had a really solid year in 2022. Didn't get any NFL looks, and this year he ended up winning Offensive Player of the Year, and he just recently had a workout with the Giants, and he's got some contract talks going on over there. So we could see a similar situation here with Abram Smith. I think you're absolutely right.
Okay.
Yeah. Here, look, see, now, James, listen, we know you're a Vikings fan, okay? But here's the Queen Hyena from Wednesday nights. You can see she's not the brightest tool in the shed there. Sharpest tool in the shed. She says, Kirk Cousins out, Jordan in. What's your take on that?
I'm speechless, man. Kirk Cousins supremacy all the way, man.
Wait a minute. You talking about people that are not sharp as tools? Are you?
I know I'm an idiot. I admit that. I'm an idiot. I admit it.
Oh, okay.
When have I ever denied it? Hey, get back to our guest here. We're on limited time with them.
Oh, okay.
And you're being rude to the guy. James, I apologize for
this is great. This has been so much fun. Now, something else that I don't know if we've seen yet today, I just saw a tweet that went by, is that Ja'Cory Pearson had a workout today with the Browns. So that's good to see.
See that. JP.
Okay, now you want to talk about a player. JPZ, the best receiver in the XFL, hands down. But my thing is, being 5'6", is that going to hurt JPZ for the NFL? Because I think I would love to see him in the NFL, but I think he's too small to be a slot receiver. Maybe a return guy. Do you really think he's got a shot in the NFL, JPZ? I think
that's where, the measurables are just so important to these NFL teams. And even if they look at film and they're like, man, this guy can really make some plays, if they look at those measurables and they don't match exactly what they're looking for, they're just not going to give him a chance. It's pretty wild how it works. But, I mean, that's a good point. And to answer that question up there, how short was Wes Walker? That's a good question. I'm going to look that up.
That's what I was just getting ready to do.
Same thing, too.
5'9".
See, he was 5'9". So
that's like the average male height.
Ja'Cory Pearson was what, 5'7", 5'6"? What was it? Dante
like
Hall was what, 5'9", right? 5'8".
I think I would love to see these NFL teams start looking and actually this was a point. I was at the USFL championship this year. I was at Media Day. We were speaking with the president, Daryl Johnston. And I thought he made a really good point when he was speaking to, the measurables and how the NFL really pays attention to those things. And he's like, sometimes you got to put the measurables aside and simply look at the film. Like these guys in spring football, they're as talented as it gets. I mean, they've just put together a full season of high quality tape. Like there's just no reason for them not to get a look. I mean, are you going to take a guy that has been sitting on your practice squad that hasn't really done anything for the last year, or you're going to look at the guy that racked up 80 or 90 tackles in a spring league that was averaging 10 tackles a game. I don't know. I mean, you tell me.
So let me ask you this, James.
Well, here, Daddy Ed, hold on, Arlington. Daddy Ed's wants to get his take on it. Because, again, Daddy Ed from the B-Hug Live, he's a Vikings fan, just like you. He said, Addison stopped going 140 in a 50. Not a good PR start for him. What's your take on that one, the young rookie?
When I saw that story, because I don't know about you guys, but there are so many fake accounts on Twitter now that share fake news and fake stories. I thought it was a troll. I thought it was a troll account. I was like, no way he was going 140 and a 55, but
right.
Unfortunately, he was. So
young, dumb, and full of cum.
I don't know what to say about it other than I'm glad nobody got hurt. I'm glad he's okay, and hopefully they can move on from this.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Because I'd love to see what this kid's going to be able to do with Jefferson on one side of him, and Jordan Ta'amu throwing him deep balls. I think that's Jordan's going to get them to the promised land, in my opinion.
Now. Oh my God!
Sorry, James.
Listen, I have a question for you, James. Listen, what do you think the future? I guess how I can put this. Do you think that the XFL can be its own entity and not need the NFL's help down the road?
That question has so many facets to it that it's really tough to give like an accurate answer. It really just depends on the moves that the league makes. I think that they really need to continue to build a strong TV infrastructure, with Disney, ABC, ESPN. Because TV deals are one of the most important things that keeps a league alive these days. You look at some MLS, for example. They have a really strong TV deal, and it's why they're doing so well right now. So I think that that's something that's really important for the league. And can they get some outside investors? Like what I'd love to see, get through season 2, and let's start appraising these teams. Let's start looking at these teams and seeing what they could be valued at. And let's see if we can get some investors. Let's see if we can get some team owners, because that would really not only help build the brand, it wouldn't just be financial help as well, but it also would just be like, it would give more legitimacy to the league that like each team would have its own owner, its own brand, its own identity, just like we see in the NFL. Like there's good owners that everybody loves, and then there's bad owners that everybody wants the hell out of there.
Daniel Snyder.
So exactly. So I think it would be really interesting. And I can't remember who I was talking about this with, but we're seeing a lot of athletes these days, like big time athletes starting to invest in these leagues. And a guy that I've kept my eye on is Kevin Durant. We've seen him invest in pickleball. We've seen him invest, I think, in tennis. We've seen him invest in MLS a little bit, I believe. He's invested in a lot of different things. He's a Washington, D.C. kid at heart. How cool would it be to see him down the road put together an investment group to take over the D.C. Defenders? I mean, that's a super far-fetched thing. That's just a hypothetical, but that's the type of thing those are the type of relationships that I think the league would want to build down the road.
I agree with you, but I don't get that comment there, Mike.
Hey, delete
that. I have a feeling I know where that's. I have a feeling.
What?
I have a feeling I know who that's meant for. Yeah.
Really?
Mike, we'll have a talk. We'll have a talk after the show, there, buddy.
Really?
Anyways,
don't put that up there.
No, we're not putting that up there. Yeah, right. Yeah, I'll play leapfrog with you, and you can smell my sweaty ball sack if you like.
Okay, man, come on, dog.
Anyways, James. Anyways, no, I agree with you. I mean, like we are starting. Like Tom Brady just invested into the Las Vegas Raiders, right? He invested into one of the soccer teams. You are starting to see these players to do that type of stuff, right? I think it's going to be smart. I mean, look, The Rock is giving these guys this opportunity. I guess my next question for you would be, and we've talked about it to nauseum on this show, and half the time these idiot fans on both sides of the USFL and the XFL, we need to expand. We need to expand. We need to expand. But we've shown that we've shown the expansion isn't feasible at this time.
Pump the brakes.
I'm saying for the USFL, if you keep succeeding, go 5 years, then start moving out to your home cities. Same with the XFL. 5 years, then start moving out to your home cities. I'm saying at least year 4 and 5, then move to your home cities. What are you thinking? Like, what is your timeline of what do you think it is?
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to watch because the two leagues have different strategies, right? The XFL has their Arlington hub where everybody lives, and then they just travel out to the cities, which I think is a smart move on their part. It probably helps saving money. Now, travel costs are a big thing to consider, but they seem to have managed that in a somewhat reasonable way. I think eventually they're going to want to get all the teams into their home markets like permanently because it's a good way for them to build that community presence, right? I mean, what's a team without any fans? So same goes for the USFL as they continue to expand and continue to grow into more and more hubs and cities. It's important to have those teams there in those markets, not just on game day, like through the week, making an impact in those communities because that's what really helps the fandom grow. So I think that's really important. And again, I'm the type of guy that I'd rather these leagues not bite off more than they can chew. We've seen these leagues come and go, and I'm just grateful that we have two of them now that are doing quite well. So I'm just hoping that they stay fiscally responsible, and I'm totally fine with them taking a bit of a slower approach as long as it means that they're here for the long term.
Correctly. Hey, I kind of want to know where this party's at for this weekend because I want some spring-loaded spankings. That's all I have to say.
So what's the even short-term plan for Vegas, though? An empty hub model would seem to be better than cash rent, and long-term Vegas is becoming a saturated market too. I look at it like this, man. I look at it like this.
Here, let me answer this one first.
All right.
Vegas is becoming finally the sports capital of the world, like it's wanted to be, all of the time. Because think about what they can do in Vegas, right? You have all the people that come from out of town into Vegas. Oh, hey, you're from St. Louis? Or, hey, your St. Louis Blues are playing in the Golden Knights. Here's you some tickets. Oh, you're from L.A.? Oh, hey, your L.A. Mercury is playing the Vegas whatever. When the A's come, oh, hey, you're a New York Yankee fan? Here's 2 free tickets. The Yankees are playing Oakland. It's smart to have a team in Vegas, whether anybody wants to believe it or not. I'm not saying Cashman is the right spot for it, but it's smart to have another team in Vegas. That's my opinion. Get over it. The team is staying in Vegas. If anything, it's going to move to San Diego. Oops. Uh-oh. But James, I mean, am I right? Vegas is not. I mean, come on, guys. Are you guys going to disagree? Is anybody going to disagree with me that Vegas is becoming the sports capital of the world right now?
No, I think you make a valid point. At the same time, I feel like Redbird wanted Vegas probably because the league is big on gambling, and obviously Vegas is the gambling capital of the world as well.
Uh-huh.
So I think that aspect of it is great. I don't know if I'm fully sold on the idea of a Vegas team. I haven't been yet. Especially after seeing what happened with Cashman, that probably made me dip in another way. I personally feel like there could have been some markets that they should have approached other than Vegas. But what are you gonna do? I would have loved to see them pursue San Diego, but
my biggest MO with that was I was hoping that Sam Boyd Stadium was still in play. That was my biggest thing with Vegas. But according to the Raiders and UNLV, they said, hey, we're going to partner up. I'm going to have you play in Allegiant. You got to close up Sam Boyd. So I was like, yeah, that would have been a perfect little venue. But a lot of people didn't like the venue. It kind of dissimilar what's going on with Camping World with how the facilities look and whatnot. But I think it still would have been ready for football, for football purposes, that they could have played in a decent sized stadium where they can get 30, 40,000. They did it before. I know it was 2001, but still it was there. That venue was there for them. And, things got thrown out of whack. And then, of course, the rumor was that the Las Vegas ballpark was in play and Allegiant wanted more money. Mark Davis wanted way more money. You know, it's like, can you bring in this amount to into the gate? And you know they couldn't. So that was the tough part. And Cashman just was there. And granted, it is less than 10,000 seats, but from a fan standpoint, it still filled up 2/3 of that stadium and made it work as slowly as they could have. They made it work as best as they could. So you can't really deny that. But I think even with next year, things are going to be a little different. Hopefully, they are starting to lay the groundwork now to at least have Cashman like a party zone. You know what I mean? Or, you know, same thing for these other venues that are doing XFL games. Same with the Alamo Dome, that they're getting prepared for the upcoming season. So it's going to be interesting enough to see how marketing is played. Like everybody stated with the whole thing with the live stream, everything is going with the creations and stuff. The content creations is going on better than they did in the first season. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
We got 5 minutes left here. James, because I'm hungry. My pizza just got here. I got to eat. Arlington, I got Emos.
Forget you. Before you
James,
go, James,
have you ever had Emos pizza?
I have not.
Listen, when you come to St. Louis, I'll get you some Emos pizza. It's the greatest thing.
He'll do it.
That's why my belly is as big as it is.
I've got another reason to come to St. Louis now, so I'm looking forward to it.
There you go. James, tell people.
Too on September 9th. That's when you should be there.
Oh, here goes Daddy Ed. See, again, this is the Vikings guy saying Emo sucks. He doesn't know what he's talking about. So I still love Daddy Ed. You know, sometimes I think his Kung Pao stuff's getting to him. I think that red hair dye's getting to his head. Anyways, James, tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, so I on Twitter at James Larson PFN. That's where I post all my USFL and XFL related stories. And of course, USFLnewsroom.com, XFLnewsroom.com. I'm a photographer, so I did a lot of work for the USFL this year in Detroit and Canton. So if you felt like checking out my Instagram, that's at James Larson Official.
Yes, sir. All right.
There you go.
Well, thank you so much, man, for coming on. And, we was supposed to have been 15 minutes, became almost a full hour. And I appreciate you.
Hey, this was a great conversation. I appreciate you guys having me on. This was a lot of fun.
James,
even when there was 2 A trains on the screen.
Hey, listen, I apologize. My co-host is usually the more professional one. I'm the unprofessional. I apologize for him and his unprofessionalism today.
Well, I accept your apology on his behalf.
Yeah, because he ain't going to apologize. Look at him. Looks like a cackling hyena right there.
James knows who I am and what I do if he watches this show. He know how I am, so I'm good. I worry about you every week. But James,
That's
man,
true.
thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming through, and you always welcome to come on the show.
Absolutely, yeah. Would love to do it again sometime. This was a lot of fun. Thank you, guys.
James, have a good one, okay?
You as well.
James Larson, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Hey, Arlington, you actually finally got a host that actually, or a guest that actually knew some stuff about the XFL world.
That's why I went after him.
Is that what it was, Arlington? Hey.
Really? You changing up your microphones and stuff on me now?
So you know what is going on July 29th here at Wild Sun Brewing Company?
Really? You're going to do this as Alvin and the Chipmunk, sir?
Yeah, we're doing a customer appreciation. And then that's on the 29th from 12 to 5. But you know what? September 9th? Do you know?
Oh, keep talking. Please keep talking.
Keep talking? Because the XFL Legion and Behold Live is doing a special fan appreciation day where it's $10. You get a commemorative. That's right. Commemorative cup plus special stuff. You get to hang out with me, Dirty,
Hey,
Daddy Ed.
you got to come with your chipmunk voice. You can't do it. You can't do anything else but the chipmunk voice.
Oh, I can't? Sons of bitches. Anyways, on September 9th, if you buy the ticket, you get your Tom commemorative glass.
I hate you saying that word now, man. I really hate it.
You get a chance to win a pair of tickets. That's right, a pair of tickets to the Battlehawks home opener.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. You're done. You're done. Thank you. All right. So, but before we go, two things. One, big ups to The Rock, and he got 7 collegiate athletes with NIL deals for his Zoa energy drink. So
Yes, he did. Good for him.
shout out to all of those guys and ladies that got their deals, and they're making some grip off of this. So fantastic stuff. But also on a sad note, I got it with this. Coach Anthony Beck, his nephew, his 7-year-old nephew, passed away. If you haven't found out, it's on Twitter. So make sure that you show his family some love. His brother-in-law and sister-in-law grieving right now. So make sure that you send their family out some love today, and because they're dealing with some grief on this particular day today. All right, man. Listen.
Yeah, this is guys. This we preach how we're a legion of fans or whatever. So regardless of what team you root for and all of that stuff, please send the Beck family your thoughts and prayers. The loss of a 7-year-old child is never anything easy for any family to do. So yeah, just please send your thoughts and prayers to them in their time of need. And with that being said, Arlington, I don't know. You got anything else? You got anything else you want to talk about?
You can leave, sir. Hey, folks, make sure that you go and tune into our show.
Just like that?
Dang, that's cold game how you just did me like that.
Oh, I thought you said leave.
No, you leave. That's all.
I'll do this.
Hey, just go follow us on our social media. You know where to find us. Get us out of here, sir.
Just leave us alone.
We're gone. Y'all have a great night. We'll see y'all next week. See y'all next week.
See you later.
That